Hey everyone, my name is Amanda. I go by Crowfood's daughter in the forums, and if you clicked on this video, you have reached the Disputed Lands. This is the first of a series of theory and analysis videos, and to commemorate the launch of this channel, there will be a giveaway for the Lands of Ice and Fire map series at the end, so make sure you hang out afterwards so you can learn how to enter. So, the Shade of the Evening Tree. It's the ASOIAF version of the Weirwood, except inversed in a dark and creepy kind of way. Our writer loves to use symbolism and literary devices to drop clues from time to time. It's something that he does well, and it's something that he does often. There have been many inversions and parallels drawn between the ASOIAF Shade of the Evening Tree and the Westerosi Weirwood, noted by readers throughout the fandom. Today, we are going to discuss a possible connection between these trees and speculate on the enigmatic, oily black stones found throughout the Song of Ice and Fire mythos and world building. Before we get started, I need to disclose that spoilers from the Forsaken and Arianne chapters will be discussed. Now let's get started. You don't have to look hard to see what our writer is doing with these two magical trees. One only has to look at how the two are described. We have white trees with red leaves and black trees with blue leaves. This seems ostensibly contradicting and opposing at first glance from a sheer aesthetic point of view. There are, however, some striking similarities, as both trees are magical, and they have the potential to both extend life and provide visions. What has especially captured the attention of the fandom is how our author has chosen to describe the tasting experience of the two trees' vision-inducing products. There is an eerie similarity that cannot be denied. For example, here we have Dany ingesting Shade of the Evening. The first sip tasted like ink and spoiled meat. Foul. But when she swallowed, it seemed to come to life within her. She could feel tendrils spreading through her chest, like fingers of fire coiling around her heart. And on her tongue was a taste like honey and anise and cream, like mother's milk and Drogo seed, like red meat and hot blood and molten gold. It was all the taste she had ever known, and none of them. And now here we have Bran with Weirwood paste. The first spoonful was the hardest to get down. He almost retched it right back up. The second tasted better. The third was almost sweet. The rest he spooned up eagerly. Why had he thought it was bitter? It tasted of honey, of new-fallen snow, of pepper and cinnamon, and the last kiss his mother ever gave him. Interestingly, in addition to there being vision-inducing trees that can extend life located in Essos, there was also once a race of small, shy forest folk called woodswalkers who once inhabited the Essosi mainland. Immediately south of Ib itself, a densely wooded region that had formerly been the home of a small, shy forest folk. Some say the Evanys extinguished this gentle race, whilst others believe they went into hiding in the deeper woods or fled to other lands. Dothraki still call the great forest along the northern coast the kingdom of the Ipequebron, the name by which they knew the vanished forest dwellers. The fabled sea snake, Corlys Velaryon, Lord of the Tides, was the first Westerosi to visit these woods. After his return from the Thousand Islands, he wrote of carved trees, haunted grottos, and strange silences. A later traveler, the merchant adventurer Brian of Oldtown, captain of the Cog Spearshaker, provided an account of his own journey across the Shivering Sea. He reported that the Dothraki name for the lost people meant, those who walk in the woods. The World Book further goes on to mention the Dothraki horse lords shunned the forests of the northern coasts, either from reverence for the vanished woodswalkers, or because they feared their powers. Adventurers even reported finding carved trees in these forests. Knowing all of this, it is quite possible the black bark relative of the weirwood was once a part of that magic from years gone by. Another hint of a forgotten Children of the Forest type presence can be found in the secretive peoples of the great and holy Isle of Lang, a people who are known for their large golden eyes, keen eyesight and night vision, with their subterranean gods known as the Old Ones, lurking underground beneath their jungles. This bit of information we have of the people of Lang has caused speculation throughout the fandom of a possible mixture of bloodlines between the Langi natives and the Children of the Forest in the ancient past. So from here, we can see a possibility that the white bark trees of Westeros and the black bark trees of Essos could be lighter and darker versions of one another, so to speak. Now this is where it gets interesting. We know the weirwood petrifies when it dies. Pretty simple to comprehend. The trees don't rot. They just turn to stone. For 1,000 years, it has not shown a leaf. In another 1,000, it will have turned to stone, the maesters say. Weirwoods never rot. That was some Tytos Blackwood wisdom for you there. Yes, a guy named Blackwood gave us that little nugget. Knowing the weirwood turns to stone, if the trees are somehow relatives of each other, the same logic could likely apply to the darker version of this tree. Basically, if the white stuff petrifies, then the black stuff does too. So imagine for a moment what black wood actually becomes when it's petrified. It becomes black stone. Let's continue this train of thought and ponder the most mentioned relic of black stone we have in the series, the Seastone chair. The Seastone chair is made of a block of oily black stone that is supposed to have been carved into the shape of a kraken. As I mentioned in the beginning, our writer likes to use some symbolism every now and then to drop some clues. Then she saw it. An uprooted tree, huge and dark, coming straight at them. A tangle of roots and limbs poked up out of the water as it came, like the reaching arms of a great kraken. No, Aaron Damphair did not weigh his words. Only a godly man may sit the Seastone chair. The crow's eye worships not but his own pride. And let's look at the first time we see someone drink Shade of the Evening. Dany raised the glass to her lips. The first sip tasted like ink and spoiled meat, foul. But when she swallowed, it seemed to come to life within her. She could feel tendrils spreading through her chest like fingers of fire coiling around her heart. Our writer decided to hide 2 little hints in our first view of this sorceress drink. But before Dany actually partakes in the wine of the Warlocks, we are introduced to the grove of shade trees Dany sees outside the House of the Undying. Long and low, without towers or windows, it coiled like a stone serpent through a grove of black bark trees, whose inky blue leaves made the stuff of the sorcerer's drink the Carthian called Shade of the Evening. No other buildings stood near. Black tiles covered the palace roof, many fallen or broken. The mortar between the stones was dry and crumbling. She understood now why Zara and Zoe and Daxos called it the Palace of Dust. Even Drogon seemed disquieted by the sight of it. The black dragon hissed, smoke seeping between his sharp teeth. Blood of my blood, Jogo said in Dothraki. This is an evil place, a haunt of ghosts and magi. See how it drinks the morning sun? Let us go before it drinks us as well. Ser Jorah came up beside them. What power can they have if they live in that? Heed the wisdom of those who love you best, said Zara and Zoe and Daxos lounging inside the pelican. Warlocks are bitter creatures who eat dust and drink of shadows. The wording here is interesting. If you've noticed, the Carthian warns Dany that the Warlocks drink shadows, and the Dothraki are disquieted by the way the place drinks the morning sun. If these words seem familiar, you will notice this language is echoed in the World Book when Ashai, by the shadow, is described. Some say as well that the stone of Ashai has a greasy, unpleasant feel to it, that it seems to drink the light, dimming tapers and torches and hearth fires alike. Ashai is a haunt of sorcerers, known for a ridiculous amount of black oily stone. The city is supposedly made entirely of the stuff, and is said to be the size of Volantis, Karth, King's Landing, and even Old Town put together. But for some reason, Ashai is still much a mystery to both maesters and readers alike. The sheer mass of the materials required to build Ashai tends to rule out most opinions and theories. What you may find interesting, however, is there is a high possibility Ashai was once a very fertile and forested area, much like Yang and Yi in the ancient past. If you take a glance at a map, you will see Ashai would have been a part of a forested and jungled fertile crescent that would have stretched from Sothorios and the Basilisk Isles all the way to Ulthos. Another thing that I want to draw your attention to is Ulthos. Ulthos is a landmass in extremely close proximity to Asshai. Even the closest settlement of Stygai is depicted as further away on the world maps. Yes, Ulthos is that close. This nearby landmass is a heavily jungled area that is a noticeably different color than any other forested areas on the map of the known world. Recently, Reddit user Wordhead published a tremendous undertaking of his Atlas of Ice and Fire. This piqued my interest because the atlas mentions the jungles of Ulthos are specifically purple-black in coloring. When I asked for his reference, he pointed me to the actual map maker, Jonathan Roberts, who, on his Fantastic Maps website, states that the jungles of Ulthos are in fact depicted as purple-black. I think it is highly possible this was part of the guidance provided by our writer who commissioned these maps for the lands of Ice and Fire. But who knows? Maybe the artist just used his artistic license and decided to throw in a purple-black colored jungle. The purple part is somewhat confusing, but the black coloring of this tree depot next to Asshai, it has my attention. Despite Ulthos being extremely close to Asshai, the possibility exists that they were once even closer. As we have noticed, there are some hints the sea level was lower at some point in the ancient past. The Thousand Isles, the Neck, and the Arm of Dorn are just a few examples. One detail I would also point to is the artwork for Asshai in the World of Ice and Fire. In the World Book, Asshai is depicted as a half-drowned city. Again, I'm not sure if the artist just decided that Asshai should be half-drowned in appearance without any guidance, but there's definitely something there. So not only is it quite possible Asshai was part of a forested and fertile crescent, but there is also the possibility that this massive purple-black jungle was located even closer to Asshai in the ancient past than we realize. The years pass by in their hundreds and their thousands, and what does a man see of life but a few summers, a few winters? We look at mountains and call them eternal, and so they seem. But in the course of time, mountains rise and fall, rivers change their course, stars fall from the sky, and great cities sink beneath the sea. Even gods die, we think. Everything changes. Maester Lewin to Bran. Now I know what you're thinking. If a shade tree were to truly petrify, what are the mechanics that would cause it to be oily? If this is the same stuff, it has to be oily, or become oily in some form or fashion. Well, as it turns out, Shade of the Evening is also described as oily. The crow's eye filled 2 cups with a strange black wine that flowed as thick as honey. "Drink with me, brother. Have a taste of this." He offered one of the cups to Victarion. The captain took the cup Euron had not offered, sniffed at its contents suspiciously. Seen up close, it looked more blue than black. It was thick and oily, with a smell like rotted flesh. From here we have pondered the possibility of what could be the origins for the black oily stone. Now let's take a look at another quote and see what we make of it. "Though Aaron clamped his mouth shut, twisting his head from side to side, he fought as best he could, but in the end, he had to choke or swallow. The dreams were even worse the second time. He saw the long ships of the Ironborn adrift and burning on a boiling blood-red sea. He saw his brother on the Iron Throne again, but Euron was no longer human. He seemed more squid than man. A monster fathered by a kraken of the deep, his face a mass of writhing tentacles." This last quote is somewhat confusing to readers, as this plainly looks like some straight-up Lovecraft monster reference. But remember that Euron is kind of a Shade of the Evening junkie, so to speak. And Shade of the Evening is basically a brother from another mother to Weirwood paste. And what does Weirwood paste do? It weds you to the tree. The writhing tentacles is a green seer tree man symbol in Aaron's dream. See for yourself. "Will this make me a green seer?" "Your blood makes you a green seer," said Lord Brendan. "This will help awaken your gifts and wed you to the trees." Bran did not want to be married to a tree. But who else would wed a broken boy like him? 1,000 eyes, 100 skins, wisdom as deep as the roots of ancient trees, greenseer? He ate. The sight of him still frightened Bran. The weirwood roots snaking in and out of his withered flesh, the mushrooms sprouting from his cheeks, the white wooden worm that grew from the socket where one eye had been. He liked it better when the torches were put out. So the Shade of the Evening vision is basically showing Aaron not what his brother is to become, but what his brother actually is. A terrible man with wisdom as deep as the roots of ancient trees. But we're not done yet. Let's talk about some hairy men for a minute. The hairy men were kind of everywhere when you look at the text of the World of Ice and Fire, at least in central and western Essos. I noticed that there was once a forest inhabited by these associate children of the forest who came in direct contact with the hairy men, and not in the diplomatic kind of way. More in that I am going to commit genocide, conquer your land, cut down your trees, and bleed your resources type of way. The god kings of Ib, before their fall, did succeed in conquering and colonizing a huge swath of northern Essos immediately south of Ib itself, a densely wooded region that had formerly been the home of a small shy forest folk. Some say the Evanese extinguished this gentle race, whilst others believe they went into hiding in the deeper woods or fled to other lands. At its greatest extent, the Evanese foothold on Essos was as large as Ib itself, and far richer. More and more of the hairy men crossed over from the islands to make their fortunes there, cutting down the trees to put the land under the plow. So the Evanese did not get along well with these forest folk that most likely worshipped a magic tree. In fact, it seems the Evanese persecuted them, cut down a bunch of their trees, and the maesters even theorized the Evanese caused the woodswalkers' extinction. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So what completely took me back was this line. The eunuch drew a parchment from his sleeve. A kraken has been seen off the fingers, he giggled. Not a greyjoy, mind you, a true kraken. It attacked an Evanese whaler and pulled it under. So a kraken has pulled under an Evanese whaler. Makes sense knowing that tree roots can look like the reaching arms of a kraken, as our writer has pointed out. This has caused me to speculate that there indeed might be something under the sea. I think there might be a good chance there is a network of huge roots, which could be why there is a green sea pun that Westeros.org user Ravenous Reader has pointed out in the forums, and could also explain why Patchface came back from the depths with the gift of prophetic vision. And here is why, detailed in one of Aeron's Shade of the Evening trips. His brother Eragon was long dead, yet there he stood. One arm was black and swollen, stinking with maggots, but he was still Uri, still a boy, no older than the day he died. You know what waits below the sea, brother? The drowned god, Aaron said. The watery halls? Uri shook his head. Worms. Worms await you, Aaron. In Aeron's Shade of the Evening dream, Uri is telling him there is no drowned god, no watery halls, just worms. Worms await him. From what we have seen in the House of the Undying, shade visions are supposed to be both cryptic and also somewhat prophetic in nature, right? So what if there is actually something that looks similar to worms or the reaching arms of a kraken under the sea? Let's take a peek. The way the shadows shifted made it seem as if the walls were moving too. Bran saw great white snakes slithering in and out of the earth around him, and his heart thumped in fear. He wondered if they had blundered into a nest of milk snakes or giant grave worms, soft and pale and squishy. The sight of him still frightened Bran. The weirwood roots snaking in and out of his withered flesh, the mushrooms sprouting from his cheeks, the white wooden worm that grew from the socket where one eye had been. The walls were equal parts stone and soil, with huge white roots twisting through them like 1,000 slow, pale snakes. People were emerging from between those roots as she watched. Knowing Euron is a man who dreamt of flying as a boy, drinks shade of the evening, and sits on a black oily stone chair, I tend to believe this will play out in the chapters, since he is also planning some sort of blood ritual or sacrifice in his upcoming battle with the Red Wine and Hightower fleet. According to the Untitled Chapter, there are krakens stirring around the Arm of Dorne, currently being drawn to blood. So yeah, maybe there will be an eldritch apocalypse of sorts. Just not the type most are expecting. Before moving on, let's take a look at two cultures in Essos who fear the sea, the Thousand Isles and the Dothraki. As we have read in the World Book, the Maester suggests the Thousand Isles is something of a drowned kingdom that has been reduced to hundreds of scattered islands. But before the Thousand Isles were drowned, it was most likely connected to the dark forests of Mosavie, a place whispered to be the haunt of shape-changers. If this is true and the Thousand Isles are indeed a drowned kingdom, then the water between these islands and the mainland would be concealing the remnants of an ancient forgotten forest. In addition to the Thousand Islands, we also have the Dothraki, whom the Maesters already suggest might fear the Ipecacuanha, also have a very real fear of the sea, and their culture will not even plow the earth. So let's back up a moment and take a look at Evany. There have been many in the forums who have drawn attention to hints of the relationship between the two sets of trees through the writer's use of Evany and Weirwood. These hints are casually floated in front of our faces in the shape of Weirwood and ebony doors, seen in both the House of Black and White and the House of the Undying. In the real world, ebony is a black wood of a few species that is so dense and heavy that it sinks or drowns in water. Each time our characters encounter ebony, I'm not sure if they can distinguish one type of blackwood from another type of blackwood when it comes to certain items within the storyline. You see, characters will have difficulty categorizing a wood they have never seen before. It's kind of a tinge of the unreliable narrator that our writer uses from time to time. Just like when Bran sees Jaime and Cersei wrestling naked. He's familiar with wrestling, so they're wrestling. The shade of the evening tree is not seen in Westeros or the Free Cities that we've seen so far. So what makes us so certain that our characters can identify shade of the evening wood when they happen across seeing it? Basically, they think they see ebony, and so ebony is how it is described from their point of view. At the top she found a set of carved wooden doors 12 feet high. The left-hand door was made of weirwood, pale as bone, the right of gleaming ebony. In their center was a carved moon face, ebony on the weirwood side, weirwood on the ebony. The look of it reminded her somehow of the heart tree in the God's Wood at Winterfell. The doors are watching me, she thought. So here we have ebony and weirwood superimposing and contrasting one another with a carved face that does a good job of reminding Arya and the reader of the heart tree in Winterfell. It's pretty simple symbolism. Basically, black tree, white tree, heart tree. In addition to Arya, Dany experiences a similar door in the House of the Undying. To her right, a set of wide wooden doors had been thrown open. They were fashioned of ebony and weirwood, the black and white grains swirling and twisting in strange, interwoven patterns. They were very beautiful, yet somehow frightening. The blood of the dragon must not be afraid. In this passage, it seems the writer is trying to describe these doors as an allusion to being made of one wood. Notice how the wording makes it seem as if they were not mechanically pieced together from two different types of wood, with descriptions such as the grains twisting and swirling. The description itself makes it seem almost as if the ebony and weirwood door is made from one slab of wood. This imagery makes a great deal of logic, knowing there is a black magic tree with similar qualities to weirwood, and was possibly at one point the same species before they split in their evolution. Later, Dany is given further symbolism in Meereen, as she is sitting the equivalent of an ASOIAF Weirwood throne. She has the Harpy throne replaced by an ebony bench. Also, the World Book has casually mentioned that the people of Asshai ride around in palanquins made of, you guessed it, ebony. Nothing grows there. I wonder where they found the wood. There is also another set of doors that should be mentioned, although not as enigmatic. We also have ebony and weirwood doors all the way back in A Game of Thrones at the Forge of Tobo Mott, our friendly neighborhood Qohoric. This one is a little trickier, but it gets cleared up in the world of Ice and Fire. Qohor stands on the River Coin, on the western edge of the vast, dark, primordial forest to which she gives her name, the greatest wood of all Essos. The forests of Qohor also yields up furs and pelts of all kinds, many rare and fine and highly prized, as well as silver, tin, and amber. The vast forest has never been fully explored according to the maps and scrolls at the Citadel, and it likely conceals many mysteries and wonders at its heart. We also learn of the god of Qohor, the Black Goat, a deity that requires daily blood sacrifice and is frequently mentioned when the Lion of Night is mentioned. And many names, the kindly man had said. In Qohor he is the Black Goat, in Et the Lion of Night, in Westeros the Stranger. Blood mages, torturers, inquisitors, poisoners, godswives, nightwalkers, shape-changers, worshippers of the Black Goat and the Pale Child and the Lion of Night, all find welcome in Asshai by the Shadow, where nothing is forbidden. Beyond her was a man with a lion's head, seated on a throne carved of ebony. On the other side of the doors, a huge horse of bronze and iron reared up on two great legs. Further on, she could make out a great stone face, a pale infant with a sword, a shaggy black goat the size of an aurochs, a hooded man leaning on a staff. Basically, Qohor is known for its special wood, being the largest forest in Essos, which is described as being primordial and not fully explored. Additionally, what I'm seeing with the Qohoric Black Goat is a deity who is worshipped in the most heavily forested area in Essos, and like a heart tree, is a fan of blood sacrifice, and is often associated with another deity that is depicted in the House of Black and White as carved out of ebony. Oh yeah, their worshippers are also welcome in Asshai. Go figure. Qohor also has a special claim to fame when it comes to strange disappearances. After the doom of Valyria, a dragon rider named Orion was the last known dragon owner on mainland Essos. He decided to gather an entire army in Qohor to march down to reclaim Valyria. The dragon rider and his army were never seen again. As you will see from a map, in order to get to Valyria, you have to travel through the primordial and unexplored forests of Qohor. What is interesting here is that the only other documented disappearance of a large group of people happened in the settlement of Yen, where an entire colony of Rhoynish who had settled the area simply disappeared one day. Yen is of course known for the black oily stone and being surrounded by a dense and forested jungle. But wait, I know what you're thinking. What about all of the Lovecraft references? Isn't Cthulhu coming for the red wines? You see, in essence, Lovecraft, he had a whole slew of different gods with various different aspects. The thing that Lovecraft did with these many deities is refer to them as the Old Ones, the Elder Gods. Our author is winking at Lovecraft and throwing these Easter egg references out there, such as the Black Goat, Ib, and Lang, which are also Lovecraft references, because he has his own version of the Old Ones and Elder Gods, and they are the Old Gods, and in his world, they are the trees. Well, that about wraps things up for today. To commemorate the launch of this channel, there will be a giveaway for the Lands of Ice and Fire map series that was discussed in this video. The maps are a collection of 12 detailed poster quality maps by Jonathan Roberts that were commissioned by our author, George R.R. Martin. In order to enter, make sure that you like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section. The first 50 subscribers will be entered to win, and the winner will be announced in the next video. My next video will be out in the next few weeks and will be covering the Grey King and Garth the Green Hand, so make sure you turn on notifications.